The GMen show number 27, that new Apple smell.
Yeah, it's the GMen show. Talking fruit, tech, and ego. Hot takes, cold coffee, still hitting every keynote. They roast your phone. No. They roast each other. Tips, rants, one after another. Is that a feature or just a bug? Either way, it gets a shrug. GMen show. Turn it up. Let the fanboys know. Questions, rants, or a nerdy confession. Call in now. Join the obsession. 703-828-46777. 703-828-4677. Yeah!
And welcome everyone to the G-Men show. I'm Guy and he's Chuck because Gaz isn't here this week. So we have Chuck Joyner from MacVoices. And you know, it's weird how things happen when you aren't there to talk about them. No show last week because both Gaz and myself, we were off doing other stuff. And Apple had the gall to release new products without our approval. How awful. How dare they? And Tim Cook will be hearing from my lawyers. Hello, Chuck. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Guy. Has it occurred to you, though? Has it occurred to you that maybe that was intentional, that he heard you two weren't going to be available and maybe just said, wow, that's the week we got to do it.
That's our opportunity right there. Let's go. No, I perfectly agree with you. And Tim will be hearing, he'll be hearing from me. I cannot believe that all these things were released, but those are the things that we're going to talk about later on. Now, Chuck, you've never been on this show before, right?
I've not, and I feel very privileged. So thank you for inviting me.
Well, let's see how you feel at the end of the show before you tell me how privileged you feel. But I do appreciate you taking the time because Gaz couldn't be here this week to come on and join me because, quite frankly, by myself, I just go off in directions that nobody wants. Nobody wants that. So what have you, Mr. Chuck Joyner from MacVoices, been doing lately?
Lately, I've been catching up and recovering from CES. We do a lot of interviews on the show floor there, Norbert Frosse and I, and then I bring them home, edit them, and release them as I can. Because my theory kind of behind it, a lot of people just push stuff out CES week, and it just turns into a flood that things get lost.
Oh, yeah.
And so, by pacing it out a little bit, it's like, okay, you get, 2, maybe 3 interviews a day, and they're all individually packaged so that for the vendor, they can take and use them as they see fit. And the individual, you as the user or listener or viewer, can, just consume the ones you really want instead of trying to scroll through an hour show where there are 10 and 15-minute interviews trying to find what you're looking for.
And get those little snippets, yeah.
Yeah, it has always seemed to make a lot more sense to me as someone who, views other people's shows, and, the marathon shows are great up to a point. But, when you really want to hear one piece that you see in a promo or the show notes, and then got to try to figure out where it is, that's a real hassle.
Yeah.
So that really has been my life since January, pretty much to the about mid-February. And after that, it's catching up on sleep and catching up on a lot of other things.
Yeah, I bet. Now, everyone remember, if you go over to YouTube is your main release point for all these videos?
YouTube is where they're housed. The MacVoices website is where they're cataloged. All the write-ups are a little bit easier findable and viewable so that you can, and there is a single post on the blog on the MacVoices site that lists out all of the CES interviews in one place. So you just click and go through there. So, yeah.
Okay, terrific. So if you go on over to MacVoices.com, you can find all of Chuck's stuff is right there. And if for whatever reason you don't want to do that, you can also go to the MacVoices YouTube channel and find them all there, along with the fantastic, and I haven't been on in a while, I know that, the MacVoices panel show that you do on Tuesday nights live at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you're a fan of like tech shows with all of the experts and me that are, there to talk about stuff, check out Mac Voices. That is a great show. All right. Well, part of the reason why I wasn't here last week, Chuck, is that I was in Florida. I had a big Florida trip, had 3 days at Universal Studios. And then after that, we rented a car, made I say this, a quick run. It's like a 3.5 hour drive down to Fort Lauderdale, because Florida is one of those states. It's like, are we still in Florida? Still? Really? But we drove all the way down to Fort Lauderdale. We had a meetup with my brother Larry and some old high school friends at the best tiki bar in the world, the Maikai. And then it was back up to Daytona for a visit with my two nephews, Bill and Jeff, who live in like the Daytona area. And so that's why I wasn't on last week. Couldn't do it. If I had brought out a microphone and a laptop, my wife would have divorced me because we were spending a ton of money. Universal Studios is not cheap. And I have to say, quick review, Epic Universe was less than epic while we were there. They have this like huge coaster that's like right there at the front down the entire day when we were there. And then the other thing that my wife wanted to see, she wanted to go to what's called Dark Universe, where they have like all the Universal monsters and stuff. That worked out pretty well. And we did a couple of coasters. We did the Frankenstein Dark Ride. And then we were going over to Epic's Harry Potter Land, for lack of a better term. And they have a Harry Potter ride. It's like Escape from Azkaban or Gringotts or something like that. And it was down for almost the entire day. Every time we would, check boards, it was, delayed is what they called it. And it was like, no, it's down. If you can't ride it, then it's not delayed. It's just down. And after we had lunch, we had a late lunch. They finally had it open again. 4-hour wait to get on the ride. And we had Fast Pass, but Fast Pass typically gets you about half the time of the whatever time it is that they're saying it's going to take to get onto the ride. I'm not waiting 2 hours to get on a 5 to 6 minute ride. I'm not doing it. So that was kind of a fail, but we had a great time at Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure. Pretty much everything was up there. So, yay, it was a good time. It really was a good time. And before we go any farther, I am still loving my Heil PR35 microphone. I love this microphone. And no snippets this week because all of the big news is in relation to all of the product releases that Apple did last week. So I think we're just going to get right into that. What do you think, Chuck?
I think that sounds great, Guy, but I would do and ask one thing.
Sure.
What qualifies the tiki bar you mentioned as the greatest tiki bar?
Well, maybe in the world is a bit of a misnomer because, obviously tiki bars did not originate in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. That's kind of a South Pacific thing. But I did look it up, and it is considered to be the best tiki bar in the United States. And they do this like show where these dancers come out and they show you some authentic dances from like Samoa and Hawaii. And, there was another place and I can't think of what it is. And then at the end, the grand finale is a fire show where they're, swinging fire sticks and stuff around. I don't know how to describe it, but it's such a good time. And relatively, food is expensive, drinks even more so, but to get in for the show itself is not really that expensive, but you should book ahead of time because they're almost always all filled up.
Okay. You just added something to my next trip to Florida.
Yeah, well, you should check it out. It's great. Because it opened I know we're going completely off topic here. Shocker. It opened in 1956 And when I was a kid, I only lived like 4 or 5 blocks away from this place. And they have like this whole jungle area. They have a really big piece of property. So when I was a kid, I used to go over there and just kind of wander around all the woods and stuff and, pretend whatever stupid little kid stuff would be going through my head. And it was so much fun. And they almost closed down because they had a kitchen fire. And it was a couple $1 million to get it refurbished. And somebody came in and, poured a bunch of money into it because it looked like it was just going to close. But somebody with a lot of money put it into it. And now it's reopened again, just as good as it was before. The Maikai
that sounds...
in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Yeah.
And I just have visions of a young guy, Cyril, out there deciding, I want to throw fire around like that and causing serious damage.
I was not a fire guy, thank God, because much of Fort Lauderdale would probably not still be standing today.
Yeah.
With the stuff I used to do, I used to take my skateboard to parking garages, 5 or 6 level parking garages. And then starting from the top, because they almost always had elevators, just ride down them on weekends when there was nobody there, because these were all associated with like offices and stuff. So they hardly ever used on the weekends. And going to the beach, I was a beach kid, not a surfer, because Fort Lauderdale has nothing in the way of surf. You had to go up to like Daytona to do any surfing. But I was busy. I was really busy as a kid, and it was fun growing up in South Florida in like the 60s and 70s. Nothing better, especially when spring break came and all the college girls came down. Fantastic. Thumbs up.
Yeah.
Loved it. Never got carded because I was so big. Should we get back to like Mac stuff?
We better get back to Mac stuff. I'm afraid of where this is going. Yeah.
It's not going well. So let's talk about some of the new stuff. So there were like 4 or 5 things announced, but only one of them was really a new product. But we're going to start from the top, work our way down to that new product. So the first thing I want to talk about is the iPad Air that now has an M4 for both the 11 and 13-inch models. It's not terribly different than the M3 and the M2 models that came before it. It has Apple's new N1 networking chip, which gives you Wi-Fi 7, Bluetooth 6, and the C1X modem is supposed to give you, I love these terms they throw out, 50% faster speeds with 5G. And of course, that's all dependent on the available speeds from your carrier. If your carrier doesn't give you 50% more speed, then it doesn't really matter how fast the modem is. Also, you can get the Magic Keyboard with it, and it's the only iPad outside of the iPad Pro to have that. Now, with some of the other ones, you can get like a folio keyboard, but it's not the same thing as the Magic Keyboard. And in my opinion, if you already have an M2 or M3 iPad Air or Pro, I would consider waiting at least one more generation. Now, what did you think about this product, Chuck?
I think you really hit it well, Guy. It's a spec bump, and that's fine. And I kind of agree with your thoughts on the M2 versus M3. What everyone seems to forget, because they get a little touchy about why you should be upgrading every time. No, not necessarily. But for the folks who have not moved over to the M series chip on the iPads, or maybe just have an M1, this might be the time to upgrade. Because there's always going to be another spec bump coming. There's always going to be, an iPad Air with M5 eventually. So, I think it's I think this is probably as much iPad as a large percentage of the notebook using world needs, depending on which size you like. But yeah, this is, don't overlook the power of this thing if you still are sitting on an Intel, or excuse me, I guess, what were those chips?
It would be like A series.
Yeah, the A series or even the M1. If you're feeling it's a little sluggish, this might be a decent upgrade.
Yeah, even with the M1, I have an M1 iPad Pro with the Magic Keyboard, and that thing is fantastic. But I have to say, I am starting to get processor envy, and I'm not quite sure when I'm going to pull the trigger. It's going to depend on what happens with pricing going forward, and when I'll have some available money. Um,
Yeah, and it also, this is going to apply probably to everything we're going to talk about. It depends on your use case. If you're spending
yes,
all day with your iPad in your hand or your lap or whatever, then you may need to do the upgrades a little bit sooner. But if it's a secondary device or a supplemental device, then it might be depending on what you're running now, might be something you can wait on.
yeah, exactly. And keep that in mind because the next product we're going to talk about is the MacBook Air with M5, and this is for both the 13 and 15-inch models. If you're a mid-level user doing some video or audio editing with Consumer Pro apps like Final Cut or Logic, then the iPad Air is, quite frankly, the perfect travel computer. Even with a 15-inch display, it's light enough and portable enough to not get in the way of whatever else you might be carrying on that trip as far as tech goes. It comes with MagSafe for power and two Thunderbolt 4 ports for all that high-speed stuff that many won't need, but it's nice to have. The base model comes with 16 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of storage, which is a bump from the 256 that the base model had, I think, last year. Or was that the year before?
Boy, I've lost track. I kind of think
Yeah,
it was the year before, but not
yeah,
sure.
could have been, could have been. And, 512 megabytes of storage on the road is probably enough for most people. But in order to future proof it, I would bump it up at least to the next level on both RAM and storage. It's not a MacBook Pro with a Pro or Max processor, but it's good enough to get most jobs done quickly and efficiently. Blah, blah, words are hard. Great battery life too. However, like the iPad Air, unless you have money to burn, you're likely not to see much difference uh, with if you already have like the M3 or M4 models. Now, what laptop do you typically have
Right
when you
now, I am
when you
running.
travel?
Oh, when I travel with my main machine, and that's pardon the pun. The M4, the M4, I choose words are hard, guy. The M4 MacBook Pro, maxed out with 2 terabytes, and I think I've got 128 megs of RAM in there.
Wow.
So, but I take my entire work environment with me wherever I go. But I'm quick to tell you, I have an M1 MacBook Air that also is usually travels with me because sometimes I don't want to pull that monster out on a plane or somewhere else, but I just want to maybe answer some email or even just triage email. And yes, I can do that on my phone and I can do it on the iPad, but it just depends on what device makes the most sense at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I have ooh, excuse me. Ooh, what is going on with these earbuds? Um, I have an M1 MacBook, 16-inch MacBook Pro, 1 terabyte of storage, and either 32 or 36 gigs of RAM. And I have been jonesing because that thing, and you have one as well. And well, I mean, a MacBook Pro. Those things are not light. Now, if you're just looking at it individually, it's 3 to 5 pounds, which is not super heavy. But when you consider that you're carrying this on your back or in a briefcase or whatever, as you're walking through airports and all the rest of that, having to take it out to have it inspected by the TSA or what have you, it can be a drain after a little while. And the MacBook Airs are so much lighter, and quite frankly, especially with the M3 to now M5 processors, are just so fast and so powerful that I'm questioning whether I really need a MacBook Pro for the stuff that I do. So don't know. We'll have to wait and see. And I'm not sure how much I can give back for it now. You know,
I don't know. I'm doing a trade in. Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, they hold their value pretty well because it's not a slouch machine by any
no,
means.
not at all.
I mean, I think the place you're starting to see the drop off is the Intel Macs,
Oh,
because
yeah,
you
yeah.
know they just don't compete with any of the M series.
Mm-mm.
I mean, I remember the first time I went from the Intel Mac to the M1, and it was it was borderline unbelievable.
Yeah,
You know, for
yeah.
rendering video and that kind of thing. Oh my God! You know what used to take overnight was now taking an hour and a half, 2 hours,
If that,
and yeah, and now it's with the M4. It's now down to I'll go to the kitchen and get a drink, and it'll be finished. You know, so it's crazy.
yeah. And I think in some ways we're starting to get a little spoiled by just
A
how
little,
fast
a
these
little.
machines are. Because I had a 2017 or 2019 iMac fully loaded, and when I switched to an M1 Mac Mini, I was blown away. I was just like, I can't believe this. And yeah, it's a big surprise. It's faster than a 4-year-old Intel machine, but the difference was astounding. And it was just one of those things where you're like, okay, well, there's no going back from this. So, I see in refurb stores, not so much with Apple, because they don't even sell those anymore in refurb, but the third party markets, I see Intel machines going for pennies on the dollar. You can get a 27-inch iMac Pro for probably $500 to $600, and that was a killer machine in its day.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it doesn't hold a candle to what the M series processors can do. Just unbelievable.
But
Okay.
there's still a market. There's still a market for them
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean,
for
they're
a
still
couple
great computers.
Well, they're still great computers, but they're also those folks out there who are having to run software that ran on an Intel Mac.
Yeah.
And now we're, not to jump too far ahead with anything, but Rosetta's coming to an end. And if you have a piece of hardware that depends on software running on an Intel Mac, you may want to pick up one of those, find one that's in really great condition, upgrade it as far as it'll go, and then freeze it. And
Yeah.
that way
Just
you
kind of
may,
put it off to the side.
yeah, I mean, there's no reason not to, because it used to be trying to have a dedicated Mac for certain things was an extravagance at the very least. Now
Yeah.
it's super affordable.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. Let's talk about the next thing, which was MacBook Pro with M5, both the 14 and 16-inch models. Now this isn't really new, because the 14-inch M5 models that were released back in September or October, but the Pro and Max models are now out across the platform. These are serious pro level machines and have the price tag to prove it. 3 Thunderbolt 4 or 5 ports, because for whatever reason they kind of give you both of them. HDMI out, not the mini HDMI connector, a full size HDMI connector, MagSafe for power, and an SDXC high speed card slot. Apple claims 3 studio quality mics. Okay, well, I have never heard a laptop sound as good as any XLR microphone I've ever used. And 6 speaker audio that supports spatial audio and Dolby sound. Depending on which processor you get, you either get 16, 24, or 36 gigs of RAM and 1 or 2 terabytes for storage. And that's base. You can still boost those up, but that's base. And they claim that their battery life is 24 hours or more. Probably not if you're rendering 4K video, but for the normal things. And again, if you're doing normal things, you probably aren't doing them on an M5 Max MacBook Pro.
Yeah, I said to myself even when the M5s came out, I was not going to be tempted, and now I'm tempted.
Yeah. Well, you have
And
an M4?
Yeah, I have an M4,
Oh, come
but
on.
but now the performance gains they're talking about. First of all, I could actually use. Do I need them? That's another discussion. But do I want them? Of course.
Of course you do.
Um,
We all do.
so I want to wait and see what the benchmarks are when they actually get out in the real world.
Right.
But the idea of fusing two of these chips together, especially at the high end.
Wait, do they
Yeah.
have the Extreme anymore?
No,
I
it's not
thought
the Extreme, but
it's the
but
Pro
it's
and the Max.
yeah, yeah. And so that technology is interesting. It's also a little dangerous because it's a new technology. So do you want to throw the money at that, especially untested? In 6 months,
Yeah.
any bugs will have been worked out. So, but
Butterfly keyboard.
again,
Sorry, excuse me.
yeah. Hey, I did want to though just bring up one thing about the speaker array because I
Sure.
tend to agree with you. But we're seeing more and more in the AI realm of having your computer be able to listen to you, and not just the system audio, but to listen to me if I'm having a phone call, like an old style real phone call on a speakerphone, and it can listen and transcribe and then utilize that information. So
Yeah.
I think we all think that, yeah, well, this is only for kind of what we're doing, the face-to-face video. There's a whole nother world coming, and it's already here to a large degree that could make use of the audio around you. So don't overlook that fact. If you have that need, it may be something that might take you from the Air up to the MacBook Pro, and
Do some of those things.
give you better performance. So
Well, on that,
that's the thing. There's so many of these things that you got to really look hard at your use case and not just say, "Oh, that's a nice spec, but I would never use it."
well, there's more to it because Apple has been promising, Apple AI, and they have implemented it in some ways with Final Cut Pro and Logic and their work suite and, some of the other things that they have. But I think we're really only seeing the surface level stuff that they intend to do. So I know that the various operating systems that come out next year or this year, really, the, iOS, macOS 27, and all the rest of them are supposed to have more AI features built into them. Now, what those features will be, not a clue. And, quite frankly, if some analyst says, well, it's going to be this, and this, you can take that horse and bet on it if you want. But chances are half of it, at the very least, is going to be dreadfully wrong because they don't really know. So without knowing what Apple has planned for AI features going forward, it's hard to know where that demarcation is going to be between not only price and performance, but the capability of these machines to be able to do the stuff we did before versus the stuff that's coming in the future. And we'll all have to wait and see what that's going to be. But yeah, I have serious MacBook Pro envy because I would love, and I keep looking at like M3 and M4 MacBook Pros because in the refurb market, especially Apple's refurb market, where you get the same guarantee and the same warranty and all the rest of that you get with a new product, it's like, okay, well, if I buy that refurb machine, how long is it going to last me before features in the operating system say, no, we'd really like you to use it, but you can't. And we already saw that kind of in iOS.
Yeah. And I'll tell you a little secret. That's how I got my M4 uh, Pro Max. As
Was through
I
the
just
refurb store?
waited. Yep, I waited and waited until the configuration I really wanted came up, and then I jumped on it. And I spent the amount I had budgeted for the new machine, but I got so much more
Mm-hmm.
for the money
Oh, did
because
you
it was
use your
refurb.
Apple Card for it?
Absolutely, of
So
course, yeah,
3%
yeah,
back
that
more
helps
on
too.
that as well.
Yeah, that helps too. So, and Apple's, don't overlook refurbs, folks.
No,
If you're
don't sleep on
seriously
that.
thinking about it, just be patient. Your configuration, your model will get there, and you can save depending on what level, enough for a nice dinner or two, up to part of a vacation.
Yeah. It's
Unless
that
you do
new
it like Guy,
car.
and then it's too much. Yeah,
Yeah.
then yeah, not Guy's vacations.
No, no. I
He's
don't
too
even want
extravagant.
to tell you how much I spent on that vacation. Those parks are not
Mm.
cheap, especially if you stay at one of their hotels, which I
Oh my
probably
God.
won't do again. Um,
Mm.
Moving on to the next product, the iPhone 17e. And this is Apple's new low cost iPhone that's been updated to an A19 processor, a 48 megapixel camera, USB C and MagSafe charging, and 256 gigabytes of storage in the base unit. They claim 26 hours of battery life, which, if even close, is pretty impressive. Naturally, the camera isn't going to be as good as what's in the 17 series of phones with multiple lenses and all of that, but it's pretty good all on its own. It also has the satellite communication when Wi-Fi and cell services aren't available. Best of all, it starts at $599 for the base model, which is probably the unit to get. Um, for people who are looking for a bargain iPhone, this is a damn good phone. Now, you could go to the refurb store and probably pick up a 15 or a 16 with the specs that you want. But for $599, this is probably cheaper than even the refurb 16s at this point.
I think this is an outstanding entry level phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I even hesitate to call it an entry level phone because really the biggest compromises seem to be principally, of course, just horsepower, but the camera.
Yeah.
And so if those are not really that important to you, then this is another great place to save some money. Or if you need a secondary phone, or that's another thing that you can. And there are a lot of uses for a secondary phone. That's a whole other discussion we can have. But I love this, and I love the fact that the bottom level has kind of crept up now to feeling like it's not a huge compromise phone. That if something happened to my iPhone when I was out traveling, maybe I wouldn't jump quite so quickly back to my Pro Max. I might grab this
Stick
as
with
a
the
temporary
17E.
replacement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's a good phone. It's still a good camera. Yes, there are some compromises as far as the camera goes, but it's the kind of phone, it's not a throwaway kind of product, but at the same time, if you have, I mean, you can spend a lot of money on an iPhone, max out the storage and get the 6.9 inch, or is it 6.7 inch Pro Max, whatever the humongous screen that you can get with that. And you could be spending $1,500 to $2,000. You drop that into a pond at say a theme park or something along those lines, you're going to be hurting for certain. But if you have a $599 17E or even the 16E, it still sucks, but it doesn't hurt as much. So this is a great kind of travel phone. It really, really is. If you want to not have to worry about, little bumps and bruises that, I mean, so many people that get the top end Pro Max or, they drop it or it bumps against something. They're like, oh God, let me look at this. Is it okay? Is it okay? Oh, it's fine. It's fine. Thank you, God, I have found religion. But with the 17E, you're like, you give it a quick glance. Okay, screen's not broken. We're good. And you just move on with your day.
Yeah. Um, I have to follow up though. Are you
Okay.
speaking from experience about dropping a phone in a pond at a theme park?
No.
Okay. Okay. All
Because
right.
because of certain things going on with me right now, when I pull my phone out of my pocket, I make sure I am nowhere near water, that I'm not standing on an earthquake fault, and that whatever building I'm standing in is the code. So, and I still have some cracks in it because I've dropped the damn thing a couple of times. But it's not too okay. Story time. My son Guy because I went from the 13 to the 16, and I gave my son Guy my 13, which had no cracks in it, beautiful condition. I saw him a year later, and it looked like a spider had like crawled into the phone and just put webs all over the place. There were so many cracks in that Gorilla Glass. So it's like, yeah, this Gorilla Glass, it's great. It's really resistant to breakage. It's like, you have not met my son. You just don't know. You don't know. And I have some cracks in mine too as well, but stuff happens, and it's a 16. So I'm not at like, oh, I just got to 17 and it's all messed up, blah, 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 blah. No, I'm fine. I'm fine with it. All right. Let's get to the main event here, Chuck. And that is the MacBook Neo. Now, both you and I were on Dave Ginsburg's In Touch with iOS. Oh no, I wasn't on. I was in the chat room, but you were on. And who was it that like was just? Oh, it was Mike Potter. Mike Potter from for Mac Eyes Only. He had a lot to say about the MacBook Neo. And I guess I'll kind of sum that up by saying not a fan. And we'll move on from there. This is such an interesting little device. Quite frankly, now this is the only really new device that Apple released, and at first glance, it's really kind of impressive for what it costs. It's a 13-inch laptop with a nice screen, an A18 Pro processor, 256 or 512 gigs of storage, a typical Apple keyboard with Touch ID for the upgraded model, a 1080p webcam good enough for FaceTime and Zoom and other web connectivity software, 2 side-firing speakers, and dual microphones of dubious quality, because I am kind of a snob when it comes to that. For ports, you get 2 USB-C connectors, so no Thunderbolt on this, and a headphone jack. And no MagSafe either. And to be honest, I would be surprised if they had been there, considering the base cost of $599 or $499 if you have an EDU account. And for what it costs, this is not a bad laptop, but it's not for me. That 8 gigabytes of RAM that can't be upgraded, even at purchase, is a glaring flaw that shouldn't be overlooked. I'm sure that you have looked at this machine as well, Chuck. What was your impressions of it?
Uh, God, I think it's a fantastic entry level machine. I think
Yes.
it's geared A at younger people,
Mm-hmm.
B at the education market.
Exactly.
And I mean education, not just elementary through high school, but even, college.
Sure.
This is not a high performance machine, but it will perform very well. They are marketing it in multiple colors, which again is not something that's going to really influence you or me, but it's going to influence a lot of people, younger people.
Confession. I have a confession.
Okay.
MacBook Air, I would want it either in sky blue or that like dark blue that they have. if I was
Okay,
going to buy one.
that's
So
yeah. No,
color does mean something to me.
okay, that's look. That's kind of the thing here, and I keep repeating it over and over. It just depends on the use case and the
Right.
individual. I usually wrap all of my devices in a case of some kind for protection.
Exactly. Yes.
So it really doesn't matter to me a lot. But I'm like everybody else. I agonize, okay, what color iPhone am I going to get when the next one comes up? And then I promptly put a case on it and have no idea what color it really is.
No. Can you see
But yeah,
this? That's
what's that?
my M1 MacBook Pro. It's got a bunch of stuff
Oh,
connected to it, so I can't just like pull it over and bring it out. But it's got like this dark green case on it, and
yeah,
like what you say, I do that as well.
yeah. And so therefore you can colorize pretty much anything you want
Anything you want.
to whatever color if you want. But yeah, Mike's analysis was really interesting. I can't say that I agreed with a lot of it, but again, I think that I almost think it's impossible for us to do commentary on a machine like this because we are so technically oriented, and we see the things that we see the things we can't do with it.
Yes.
Meanwhile, kids and the education market are going to see all the things they can do with this.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, by the way, it's a Mac. It is not one of those pieces of Windows.
Yeah. Or a Chromebook.
Yeah, that have so many limitations. I've been really impressed by the number of tech press pieces that have talked about the build quality of this. That this does not feel like one of those flimsy Windows laptops or Asus laptops that you go and pick up and you feel like it's a legal pad that flexes. That this feels like a Macintosh.
Yeah, I
And
actually
so
didn't put it in the notes, but it is made out of aluminum.
yes, yeah. And so I feel like this is not a machine for me. Could it be sort of like what we were talking about for the M4 Air? Could this be a travel machine? Yeah, maybe. I want to get my hands on it. I know I'm not going to be most likely not rendering anything, or if I am, it's not going to be in a hurry. But at the same time, if I want a laptop, a really light laptop, an inexpensive laptop,
With
yeah,
great
this
battery life.
with great battery life. And again, the 8 megs of RAM, or excuse me, 8 gigs of RAM. Well, okay, to your way of thinking and my way of thinking, that's kind of sparse. But what are the university kids, what are the high school kids going to be doing? They might be doing a little bit of video, but if they're really going to do their work on it, their homework, they're going to be doing web, they're going to be doing word processing, those kind of things. For the most part, it's been super super well received. But the folks that are critical of it, I think, are the ones that are
Don't
seeing
understand it.
again, yeah, that they are not willing to understand it. They're not willing to look at and say, here's a machine that is built for someone, not me.
And
So
does it fit the purpose for which it was built? And I think the answer to that is a big yes. It fits the exact purpose for what this machine was intended for, and doesn't cost a lot of money. I mean, the most that you're going to, not counting taxes and all the rest of that, the most you're going to spend on this machine is $699. And that gets you 512 gigs of storage. It also gives you Touch ID on the keyboard. And, you still got the 8, why they didn't just say, okay, $749 and give you 16 gigs of RAM. If it had 16 gigs of RAM, I would have been very tempted to try it out, to maybe get one and give it a shot. The 8 gigs of RAM is kind of it's kind of the Rubicon for me. And I just cannot work with a machine with 6 gigs of RAM, considering what I'm going to be using it for.
bingo. What you're
Yeah.
going to be using it
What
for.
I would be using it for.
Right.
But for
right.
what it is, this is and it's a full-blown Mac. And not to disparage the iPad running iPad OS 27, which is fantastic. It turns it into a whole different type of machine than what it was before. It's still not a Mac. This is a full-blown Mac for less money than you would spend on an iPad Air. And that's amazing to me. And the fact that they were able to utilize an A series processor and make it all work, I'm just astounded. Now, I don't know if the RAM limitation is due to the processor or if it's, they've got 100,000 A18 Pros out there, and that's the most that they could put on them. I'm not a chip guy.
Yeah, and so I guess the goods and the bads here. Apple seems to have basically identified all of their major hardware at different price point levels. And we could say, well, if you could just do this, if I could just do this. But if they just did that, then they're starting to cannibalize,
right?
The next level. On a $599 laptop, $499 for education, there have to be some compromises.
Mm-hmm.
And, there are compromises here to our way of thinking, but they're not compromises that are going to just make it totally unusable and a joke. And so, and Apple's a business. Look, they're trying to hit all the price points.
Make money.
Right. But we're tech people. And so we say, well, if you just gave me this, okay, fine. But, then if that's what you really need, go to the M4 Air.
Yes. Or, something along those lines. But now let me ask you one more question. What do you think this is going to do to the education market for iPads?
That's a really interesting question, Guy. And I'm not sure what the education market is for iPads, given that they're a bit more fragile for the most part than a MacBook would be. And also we're into the inevitable touchscreen versus keyboard debate.
Right.
And again, I feel like Apple has done a great job of giving all levels the choice. You want an entry level keyboard? We got you. You want an entry level touchscreen? Yeah, we pretty much got you. Yes, they're not running Mac OS, and one's running iOS, one's running Mac OS, but I too am of the school. I mean, this again is kind of an aside, but I too am of the school that different devices for different functions, and not that there can't be an overlap. There's a Venn diagram there, but there are places that a keyboard, at least for my generation, is more desirable.
Yes,
and that I struggle with using a touch interface for certain. For certain can't talk for certain
Words
activities. Yeah. But on the other hand, here we go. How many people buy keypads or keyboards for iPads? So what does that say about it? So I feel like you can kind of name what you want, and Apple has an answer for it. Might require a third-party accessory or two, but you can trick out whatever you darn well please.
And when you look at the way that multitasking was done prior to iOS 27 versus the way it is now, it's night and day. I mean, almost all the pieces are there for it to be like a Macintosh, but it isn't. And actually, let me ask you one other question, and this has nothing to do with any of the product releases that came out. Do you think Apple is overextended as far as the number of models that they sell in the iPad market?
I think it's at a borderline right now. It would not surprise me to see a little bit of consolidation, especially now with the low end, the Mac Neo. But again, I feel like that these can address different markets. You can view some as they try to hook you with this, but you want this, and this. So okay, I need to move up to the next level. But maybe you would never have started there. You got hooked in and then pushed up. So we never see exact sales numbers on any of the individual
No, on
products.
any of these, yeah, not anymore.
Yeah, and you know that there are statistics and analyses being done that are just well beyond anything that I want to do or you want to do,
Yeah,
about what is selling, who's buying it, how is it being used, and if you are buying on the Apple site anyway, where they start and where they end up.
yeah. To me, I think, quite honestly, Apple could get rid of the Pro. I think that the Air meets the market pretty much for everything other than that bump up to an M5 that the Pro has. I would also probably keep the regular iPad. So it would be iPad Air, the iPad Mini, and those would be the three products that I would sell, as compared to, I think, 5 different product lines that they're selling right now. And I think that, because part of the problem I think with the iPad market is people are confused over, well, which one do I get? Which one is going to do the stuff that I wanted to do? When quite a number of the people that buy iPads are basically using them for content consumption. And you don't need an iPad Pro for content consumption. iPad Pro and iPad Air are for people that are creating the content, as compared to just watching it. Like I remember the very last Macworld Expo 2014. I was determined, and I didn't even bring a laptop. All I brought was the iPad that I had at the time, and I did audio editing, I did video editing. I took it down to podcasts and uploaded them. It wasn't easy, and it took about twice as long to do all of that stuff as compared to if I had done it on a laptop. But even in 2014, 12 years ago, I was able to do all of that stuff on an iPad. So if if you're looking for a machine, and I'm talking across Apple's entire line, that you can use for content consumption and basic word editing, spreadsheets, things along those lines, you could do quite well with an iPad Air, or even really a regular iPad. But when you get right down to it, there is no substitute for the Mac, which is where the MacBook Neo comes in. See, I brought it all the way around again, Chuck.
And
It was a
Guy,
big leap.
Well, look, I'm with you. The highest power things that I do on my iPad Pro are LumaFusion and Final Cut.
Right.
Okay. I know that there are pro photographers out there that do a lot more in that space. I don't, but I would need to have some kind of specs or some kind of experience with, okay, how are they going to run on a lesser iPad than an iPad Pro?
Yeah.
Once again, I think different markets. Apple has an answer for everything. If you need a high powered Mac, you can buy a Mac Studio that is ungodly fast.
Mm-hmm.
If you need a laptop that is super powerful, you've now got the M5 Max. Let's see, the iPhone 17 Pro Max.
All the way down to the 17E.
I'm losing. Yeah, I mean, that's it. They've really built out. We were all so fond of Steve Jobs, quadrant thing, and it made perfect sense at the time. But now there are more and different kinds of users, and if you're not addressing that, I mean, I love the car analogies because I still think there's so many things that are similar there. But there is not one car company out there that makes one model.
No,
because there are too many people that need to do too many different things or want to do too many different things with their cars. So most of the manufacturers try to have something at multiple price points that address those issues and challenges and activities.
Yes. So we're going to move all the way away from that. And I'm going to do a little something here that Gaz usually does. And I'm going to nail it. I know I'm going to nail it. Would you agree with that, Chuck?
I'm rooting for you, Guy.
He's
no
nodding
question.
his head. Good enough.
Hit it. Gaz's tips.
Mostly.
Gaz's tips.
Mostly.
Gaz's tips.
It's time for
Gaz's tip.
Okay. If you need to duplicate a file instead of just dragging it, you select the file and then, you hit the Option key and that will duplicate it, leaving the original where it was. Now, where you might use this, for instance, is, usually you copy and paste. Like you're in Keynote and you want to put a logo in the top left corner of every single one of your slides. So you copy the logo and then you paste and then you copy and you paste, then you copy and you paste, and you're doing all the other stuff along with that. Well, with this, you just start to drag it, hit the Option key, it duplicates it, leaves the original where it is, and puts the new one right where you want to go. And I think that's a wonderful tip. Do you think that that's a wonderful tip there, Chuck?
I think that's a tip that I use probably daily.
Yep.
It's one of those things. It's the magic of the Option key.
It is. So much head nodding.
Hit it. That's the end of Gaz's tips. That's
Most
the
of
end of Gaz's tips. That's
Most
the
of
end of Gaz's tips.
Is that the end of the tip?
Will you let me finish?
Gaz, you are absolutely right.
Okay, so that's Gaz's tip for this week. And I actually have a for pick's sake this week as well. And my for pick's sake is something that just came out recently. It's Elgato's Wavelink software. It is free. There is no charge for this software. And what it does is nothing short of miraculous. Wow. Boy, words are really hard today. You'd think I was on drugs, but I'm not. I swear, probably. So, Rogue Amoeba makes a couple of apps that this kind of apes a little bit, and that would be Audio Hijack and Loopback. Two fantastic programs that you can use standalone or together and route audio in any way, shape, or form that you like. This kind of does that, but it doesn't have the flexibility of the Rogue Amoeba apps. But if you don't need that flexibility, and especially considering that this is free, check out Elgato's Wavelink software. There'll be a link in the show notes. Such a fan. I am stunned by how great this app is. Now, Chuck, I think you have one too.
I do. It seems like weather has been on everybody's mind recently.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what part of the country you're in the U.S. In fact, it doesn't really matter what part of the world you're in. The weather seems to be getting crazier. And there are a lot of great weather apps out there. I came across one and I kind of settled on it because it's sort of no frills. It doesn't necessarily dig into all the weather stats that weather geeks love, but it gives me what I want in a very usable format. It's called Looks Like Rain. It is available for iOS, iPadOS, and Mac. So you can put it across all of your devices. There's a paid version that'll let you save multiple locations. The default one basically lets you save one or two, which is really all I ever need. Or you can obviously hit a little button and it'll zoom into wherever you happen to be. So I could go through all the details, but it's better if you just take a quick look at it and see if it's for you. And again, one of the things I know the criticisms I've heard is, well, it doesn't do this. It doesn't give me abusive comments, or it doesn't, show me the exact barometer readings, at every second of the day. And it's like, yeah, you're right. It doesn't, but it does what I want. It feels like to me a logical successor to Dark Sky. We just had some.
That's been eliminated, right?
Yeah, that's gone, long
it's not
gone.
Available anymore.
Yeah, but this one, and just over the past 24, 48 hours, we've had some, not horrendous weather here, but some interesting weather. And it's really good on the hour by hour stuff so that you have a pretty good idea of when something's going to happen and, to what degree it's going to happen.
Now,
So
is this a
I would tell you,
subscription service, or is it like pay once and you're done kind of thing?
that's a great question. I can't answer that because
I'm
I have been
sorry.
using, I've been using the free version because it gives me everything I need.
Everything you need. Okay.
Yeah, that's sort of the beauty of it. But if you need more, if you're like Guy who's jetting around the world to all these amazing places
Yeah.
and want to save those locations, then you probably want to look into the paid version of it, whether that's subscription or not. I'm not sure.
Yep.
But it's just a good, no nonsense, no frills kind of weather app.
And that's Looks Like Rain. You can find it at lookslikerain.app. Is that in the iOS App Store?
Yes.
Oh, very, very good.
Yeah.
Okay. If you'd like to support this show for whatever insane reason, you can go to ko-fi, ko-fi.com/MacParrot. You can also PayPal through PayPal, paypal.me/MacParrot. And that's my imitation of a parrot because I don't have a parrot sound in my soundboard, which I really should, since everything I do seems to be MacParrot related. Don't know what's wrong with that. No other email or Spotify feedback this week, which gives me a sad face. But remember, if you've done some kind of podcast review in the podcast aggregator of your choice. No, I'm the one that's aggravating. Okay. The rest of them are aggregators. Make sure that you let me know about it. And when we speak on the show about it, you will get a Woody, which Chuck is going to get for being on the show today. Do you know what a Woody is, Chuck?
No, Guy, is it something we can talk about in mixed company?
It is. It is. A Woody is a big W, big O, big O, big T, little I, little E, exclamation mark. That is a Woody. And you will be getting one, and you will look at it and hang it in a frame and wonder how you ever survived the last however many number of years you've been spinning around the sun without a Woody from the GMen show. Yeah. Okay. You can send us a bumper. Now, in the audio version of this show, I always put a bumper just before the show starts. And by a bumper, anything about us, anything about the GMen, it can be insulting, which typically they are. It can be praiseworthy, which it typically isn't, or whatever. Just please keep it between 5 to 10 seconds. And if you must use naughty words, they will be beeped. But that doesn't mean I won't use them. If you'd like to contact either Gaz or myself, the main way to do it would be gmenshow@icloud.com. That is the email address, using the email client of your choice. If you'd like to talk to me on some of the socials, I'm on 2 very different kind of social media networks. I'm on both Twitter and BlueSky, which says a lot about me. And you can find me at either MacParrot or VertShark on Twitex, or MacParrot and VertShark on the skies of blue. Gaz can be found on Mastadon, and that would be GazMaz at c.im, and GazMaz on BlueSky. We are also Guy and Gaz at Twitter and BlueSky. Now, Chuck, if people wanted to get a hold of you and say, what the hell were you thinking when you agreed to come on this show, how would they do so?
I would love to hear them ask that question. Chuck at MacVoices.com is the email. Let's see, where else? On socials, you can find me as at Chuck Joyner. And of course, there's a contact form on the MacVoices website as well. So jump in with any of those. I'd love to hear from you about anything. And the analysis Guy and I did hear about the products, because the world is different. I'd love to know what you're doing, and I think Guy would too.
Yes, we're waiting to hear from you. And if you get the video version of this show over on YouTube, you'll see me pointing at the lens on my camera. We have a Google Voice number. Did you know that, Chuck? We have a Google Voice number.
I think you mentioned it, yeah.
Right.
Guy has a Google Voice number. The G-Men want your call. Call him now.
I love that. Thank you, Jeff. That was from Jeff Gamet. That number is area code 703-828-4677. If you're outside of the United States, you would put in the country code and then 1 and then the number, but you will probably incur charges if you dial it directly. As a matter of fact, I can say almost with a certainty that you will incur charges outside of the US, but there's so many different ways that you can get a hold of us that it doesn't even matter. And if you missed that number, here it is again.
703-828-4678.
That's right, 703-828-46. And that is the number that you would call. Other stuff that I'm doing, Guy's Daily Drive, which is an archive for all of the ones I did going all the way back to 2018, mostly driving to work in my car at the time. So, and it's not every day, but I am talking. So it is a drive and it is me. It's just not daily, but it sounded good. There's also Tales from the AI verse, which I am still so slow in rolling out, but we will get there someday. Now, Chuck, this is the sad part of the show. It's so sad. We have to say goodbye. Nobody wants it, or maybe everybody wants it. It's hard to tell. But I would like to say, no, all kidding aside, I greatly appreciate the fact that you download and listen to the GMen podcast, and we hope to see you next week as well. Now, I messed up. I messed up. I didn't have a dad joke ready, so I am going to very, very quickly go to the internets, and I'm going to find a dad joke. There's so many good ones here. But before we do that, let me get back to the show notes. Chuck, I think that this week, especially this week, that we were good enough and smart enough, one of us was, and that doggone it, woof, wilf, woof, woof, Walf, that's the name of Gaz's dog, people like us. Okay, are you ready for this? My hotel tried to charge me $10 extra for air conditioning. That wasn't cool.
I'm waiting for the rim shot.
No, I don't have that. Here's another one. This is a fact. If you sneeze or if you sneer at any other method of measuring liquids, you may be held in contempt of court. Ba-da-bum. Psh. Okay, it's really bad. And
so you can all go home and there's nothing to worry about. Get out of here now. Go on home and go home.